Hey out there, this is November 28th, 2015. I'm in Ocean Beach, California, a suburb of San Diego. It's just about 10 o'clock in the morning here. And today I'm going to get into, as usual, try to get into some current events. And I want to talk about the reasons why our world is the hellish nightmare it is. To those that are awake, that understand that we have the best hell that money can buy. And it's a social Darwinian hell. And it's all about money. It's not so much even about physical strength anymore. It's just about money being the tool of survival. And how it really is the root of all of our problems. And I know so many people I admire and respect believe that somehow humanity and money can coexist. Now, I would suggest the evidence pointing the other direction, that as much as we want to believe it's innocent and that it can be used for good, and that it was created to merely facilitate exchange, I think in all honesty, we have to say it isn't working. And it's causing a miserable, hellish nightmare, a social Darwinian utopia. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And people are getting used to it. They're adjusting to things getting worse and worse and worse. And the people that are most successful at doing that are the ones that have all bought into this social Darwinian nightmare in the first place, and say that yes, it's quite logical, it's quite pragmatic to believe that the key to happiness in this world is money, because this is how we spell success. This is how we spell prosperity. This is how we spell relief from financial insecurity, financial fear. This is how we spell freedom. And that is the practical, common sense way to believe. And I take great issue, as anybody that's watched any of my videos knows, with that idea. And from deep research and interest in the subject of money, I have realized that the only proper way to ever involve ourselves in money as the greatest species on the face of the earth is as a way to distribute prosperity initially until the prosperity was distributed, and then we would have no use for it because its worth had gone up so dramatically simply through simple economic principles like the law of supply and demand. Because under the law of supply and demand, your currency increases in worth daily, and this is what's supposed to happen. And the reason is because we, humanity, the civilization as a collective, consistently supply more than we demand. And we could supply incredibly much more, exponentially much more, if we were allowed to. But the powers that be idle the workforce. As everybody knows, they call it layoffs. So here you've got all these energetic, willing workers that are, wanting to go out and produce and supply more, but they're not allowed to. And again, people will say, well, it's because the stuff isn't selling. Well, if the stuff isn't selling under the law of supply and demand, at some point it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until it can get no cheaper, and then you're giving it away. And that's the reality I want to reveal can be ours if we understand sound currency. Because in order to attain that reality of full prosperity, and full prosperity having nothing to do with money, then we first need to have sound currency. And sound currency requires strict accountability. It requires a voice in unison, and that voice is the voice of we the people. And we decide our destiny. And our destiny is very much entwined in this economic unreality that has been foisted upon the whole earth, the whole world, upon all of us. So we don't have any choice. We're born into this pseudo-reality, this unreality, where we're told we have something very unique to the human species, and that thing is called money. And we have a cost of living. So we are born beholden, every one of us. And that just shouldn't be the case. And the only other creatures out there that are born in this manner are either livestock or zoo animals. And being that human beings are neither, that we are at the top of the intellectual food chain, and logically speaking, I think people that are rational would agree that we are equal, that the Constitution, being based on equality, is based on divine decree. In other words, this is nothing any man decides. This is not arbitrary, capricious laws and rules and regulations we're all told to follow. Of course, we all know so many are exempt. This is the last word. This is what our owner, that is the Creator, that's God, that's whatever you want to call it, this mystery, this force of wonderment and miracles that gave us a brain, that gave all of us a brain, and that's the only reason we have a brain to think. So anybody out there that thinks they're so wonderful and great because of their life choices and their accomplishments, just always remember that you didn't do anything on your own, and it's very important that you understand that you actually are owned, that we are property of another. And it's very important, above all, to please our owner, because the owner is the source of all gladness of heart, of all true prosperity, and happiness, joy, peace, contentment. So without pleasing our owner, we will never find those things. We might find a false, phony version of those things in this world, because we've all been so trained and incrementally inculcated to believe this is what makes sense, because it simply is the way it is. And so by not accepting it, you're not sensible. But I've got to tell you something. The older I get, the gladder I am that I am an idealist, I am an egalitarian, and I'm not the nutty one, that indeed it is a system that thinks it's okay to have unnecessary suffering ubiquitous. It's everywhere, all around the world. And my complaint isn't against the things that are across the board that we all have to experience at some time in our lives. We all have to deal with disease and death. We all have to deal with natural disasters. We all have to deal with the reality of accidents that could befall us. Predation. There's all kinds of very scary scenarios that we all, by necessity, must face just as being human beings, creatures, these God animals that we are. But the one thing that we don't have to contend with, the one thing that's invented, that is conjured up, is this monetary-based unreality. And this is the source of all of our problems. Okay, plain and simple. There's no two ways around it. There's no getting around it. And we've got to understand what that complaint is, what my complaint is, what your complaint is, what the collective complaint is out there. Why do we have so many social problems and ills that we never seem to get to the bottom of? We never seem to finally get over. Why is heroin addiction at the levels it is? And this is a very serious disease. You understand, the disease of drug and alcohol addiction and other addictions that we engage in. And it's a form of escapism, is what it is. And this is at the crux of the matter. So these people are making us so miserable that, we want to pull our hair out, allegorically speaking. We want to scream. We feel stifled. We're sucking lemons. We're frustrated. We're angry. We need escapism. Again, what is your choice of escapism? Everybody's got something that they're leaning on. For a lot of people that are able to avoid the self-destructive tendencies of drug addiction of one type or another, or dissipating the time through fruitless entertainment of one sort, we got the sports and theater. I'm not saying these things are always necessarily bad. I support the arts. I'm very glad that we have actors and comedians out there. I love these people. So don't misunderstand me. But, when it comes down to what's really important to our survival, there's plenty of willing people to support these things. We don't ever have to worry about the system breaking down, because the fact is that people want to serve. If they don't serve in some capacity, they don't get a chance to exercise their talents. They don't get a chance to be appreciated, to feel relevant, to feel wanted. They are not happy. So understand that it's never the fault of the people. It's never the fault of the poor that when we have economic problems. This is all oppression. This is the way we're being controlled. This is the way our cruel overlords extract their pound of flesh. This is the way they extract their perverted form of reverence. This is the way they play God over us, is by having this power and not allowing you to have it. They've got all the law enforcement agencies have all bought into it, right? From the FBI to the local PD, right? They all say, oh no, this is not real money if you went and printed it out at Kinko's or something, right? This is illegitimate. You're going to jail for this. It's a very serious crime to counterfeit. And that's an example of an arbitrary law, because there's no checks and balances. There's no accountability in our financial system with this fiat currency. These people are just thieves and murderers that are doing this. And these are the people that own all the law enforcement. And behind all the law enforcement, from the police to the FBI, we've got the military. So at the end of the day, these people control everything. And the way they enforce it is through by power, by force, physical force, violence. If any individual or groups of individuals out there thinks they're not going to conform to the system, well, the system will teach you better by making you conform, by intimidating you, by forcing you to do it. And if you don't conform to the system, your stuff can be taken, your physical freedom can be taken.